The ability to understand and be able to regulate body constitution is one of the main advantages of Chinese medicine over biomedicine. In this video, I will present the 6 most common types of constitution and explain how you can balance this constitution to have a better health and also prevent medical conditions. The constitution can be defined as long-term physiological and pathological characteristics of our mind and body. They influence our vulnerability to pathological factors such as the weather, the food we eat, etc., and how our disease evolve through time. It's mostly determined by our genes, but can also evolve according to our habits, especially long-term habits, and the climate around us. The first constitution we're going to see is Yin Deficiency with coldness. This is a constitution with a global lack of warmth and energy in the body. People who have this constitution may experience fatigue, shortness of breath, they may have colder hands and feet, the mouth may be moist or dry but they don't have thirst, they may have loose stools, frequent urination, edema, especially in the legs, pale complexion, large and pale or dark tongue, which are all kind of signs of coldness, a watery coating, and also weak, deep, and thin pulse. So they tend to be more introverted and more quiet in general, and they want to keep their energy for themselves because they already lack of energy. They also have a preference for warm weather in general, and also warm food and warm drinks. They tend to be vulnerable in terms of disease to wind cold attacks, so talking about common cold, but also infections, respiratory infections, asthma, rhinitis, especially chronic allergic rhinitis, osteoarthritis, but also other types of joint pain, chronic diarrhea, and also infertility, which is commonly related with Yin deficiency. In order to manage this constitution, it's very important to avoid cold food in general. So we're thinking about ice cream or anything that comes directly from the fridge and that is cold in temperature, but also juicy fruits in general, so like orange, etc. Raw vegetables, so avoid salads, especially with like green vegetables, raw green vegetables, and also milk, which is cold in nature. Avoid consuming your resources by working too much, especially physical work or excessive mental work as well. Protect also yourself from coldness, especially your feet. It's very important to keep your feet very warm, and same for your lower abdomen or lower back as well. Protect yourself from wind, especially when there is air conditioning or when it's a windy day. And especially the upper back and neck area, which is very sensitive to wind cold. You can consume some lamb meat and beef milk, also dark chocolate if you're not into meat, also rich food with spices. Think about the thick soup with cumin and pepper and ginger, etc. All these spices, and a bit of spirits can also be beneficial because they tend to be very warm in nature, so they can be good against coldness. Think about consuming black tea as well, which is more warm in nature and can help to build up yang. About the Yin deficiency with the heat, so this is the second constitution we're going to see. There's a general lack of material substances such as body fluids, blood, and essence, which tend to be cooling. So this lack of material substances causes some overheating in the body. And this can be manifested with dry mouth, with thirst this time, agitation, but also disturbed sleep. The palms of hands and soles of feet can be very hot. There can be dry skin, dry eyes. The stools can be dry as well. These people tend to have a relatively thin body because their resources are consumed by the heat. They also have a red complexion, a thin red and dry tongue with a lack of coating on the tongue, The pulse can be thin, but generally will be strong and slippery because of the heat pushing the blood in the vessels. There's a general preference for cold and humid weather, which will help to cool down this overheating, and a preference for cold foods and drinks. We see this constitution a lot in perimenopausal women, which tend to have a lot of this yin deficiency and fire rising. But we can see also it in diabetes and with Sjogren's syndrome, which is autoimmune disease in which people have dry eyes and mouth, etc. People who have yin deficiency with heat tend to be more vulnerable to mental health issues, especially when there is excitation of the brain. So think about excitation and anxiety and insomnia. In order to manage yin deficiency with fire constitution, it's important to avoid hot food and substances such as alcohol, coffee, nicotine, spices, and red meat, which tend to be hot in nature. Avoiding chronic stress, which usually will consume all the blood and essence and aggravate the yin deficiency. But limit also screen time, which again tend to consume blood and essence. It's important to get enough hydration and also to consume some green vegetables and fruit, again to cool the body a bit down. Green tea can also help to clear the fire and cool down the body. The third constitution we're going to see is the spleen deficiency with the dampness constitution. This is related with our digestive and metabolic weakness, leading to an accumulation of waste in the body. So this is manifested with sticky sensation in the mouth, maybe some phlegm in the throat, body heaviness and fatigue, loose and sticky stools. Also, there may be eczema with itching or itchy skin, leukorrhea, so this is excessive vaginal discharge, itchiness in the genital area, which is also very typical of dampness, body with a lack of muscle and or excess of fat tissues. So it can be either one or the other. There can be a greasy skin. The tongue is generally large with teeth marks and also a thick, greasy coating. The pulse is generally large and soft and weak. So people who have spleen deficiency with dampness, they tend to be attracted to fat, high-fat food and sweet food. But this type of food will aggravate the condition. They also have an aversion to damp weather. They may get worse when it's very humid, and they also feel very bad after a heavy meal. So they may feel very bloated and heavy and maybe having headaches and these sort of things. People who have a spleen deficiency with dampness constitution have a vulnerability to gastrointestinal disorders such as celiac disease, IBS, etc. Also metabolic conditions such as obesity, high cholesterol, high glycemia, gout, etc., but also joint pain and allergies. So in order to manage the spleen deficiency with dampness constitution, we will need to avoid absolutely having dampening foods such as processed food, sugar, so sweets, etc., deep fried foods such as fries, etc., dairy products, especially cheese and fat meats, alcohol as well. Cold food have to be avoided as well because they can harm the spleen even more. It's important to limit also food consumption in the evening because the gastrointestinal system is weaker and cannot transform the food in the evening. It's important to have a diet that is based on grains and also fresh vegetables cooked, and also using spices in your diet. Regular exercise is very important, so we want at least 30 minutes per sessions and 3 times per week. And it's also important especially for people working in office, to try to stand instead of sitting, because sitting may aggravate the spleen deficiency and the accumulation of dampness. Damp heat is really an extension of the last constitution we saw, the spleen deficiency with dampness. It's really when the dampness starts to accumulate and generates heat, so which creates this kind of mix of dampness and heat. In addition to the sign we just saw, there might be bitter taste in the mouth, bad breath, dry mouth, dark urine. The complexion of the face may be red. The tongue may be red with a yellow and greasy coating, and there might be a strong, rapid, and slippery pulse. This constitution is more common in males than females. In addition to the condition that we just cited, there might be a vulnerability to rise of fires, so you can check our video on rise of fires to know what it means, including mouth ulcers, but other conditions as well. Skin conditions are very common with people who have damp heat. Think about eczema, psoriasis, acne, etc. Also, these people are more vulnerable to coronary heart disease and hypertension. In order to manage these damp heats, this will be quite similar to the management of spleen deficiency and dampness, so avoid dampening foods, cheese, gluten, sugar, etc., but avoid hot food as well, so meat, alcohol, coffee, which tend to be hot in nature. Dark chocolate should be avoided, of course. Avoid excessive emotions or stress, which create heat and can aggravate the situation. So it will be important to have a regular consumption of green vegetables and fruits for people who have damp heat. Avoid having too many of them, so it can't be a diet completely based on them, but they need to be present in the diet. Exercise will be very important to balance damp heats because they will allow the body to be able to manage the dampness and get rid of the waste. Blood deficiency and liver constraint is also a constitution that is very commonly seen nowadays, and we see a lot in the clinic. So in this situation, there's a lack of blood, which is usually soothing and regulating emotions. So this lack of blood will lead to an excessive emotional reactions, which create constraints and can further lead to heat as well. So people who have blood deficiency and liver constraint tend to be very susceptible to stress and having strong emotional reactions. So this can be manifested by chest tightness, hypochondriac pain, especially running pain along the sides of the body, but also tension in the trapezius area. There can be headaches, stomach pain, acid reflux, irregular and painful menstruation as well. That's very common. The nails, the typical manifestation will be dry, dark, and brittle nails. Also dark tongue and deep, thin, tight, and strong pulse. So generally, people with liver constraint and blood deficiency are not affected by weather, but they can get worse when it's crowded and when there are narrow spaces, such as cities. They usually get better when there is a large space around them and when there are green and blue colors around, because this color tend to help to move the qi and get rid of the constraints. Blood deficiency and liver constraint, it's more common in females than males, but we can see it sometimes in males as well. There is definitely a vulnerability to mental health conditions. Think about depression, anxiety, insomnia, but also all kind of stress-related conditions, gynecological, digestive conditions, also nodules and tumors such as breast hyperplasia, thyroid nodules, ovarian cysts, and even breast cancer. So in this situation, the liver constraints become especially when there is a long-term liver constraint, the accumulation of qi leads to actually a real accumulation of tissues, such as nodules and tumors. So in order to manage and balance this constitution, it will be very important to limit screen time, limit stressful work, to soothe the movement of the liver and also nurture the blood. It will be also important to have enough sleep. So that's a very important aspect to keep enough blood. Alcohol, nicotine, coffee, and drugs, so they can seem to be helping, because they help to move the qi. However, they tend to be very dry and damaging the blood, which on the long term, this will aggravate the problem. So they should not be used regularly. These are a quick fix, but they don't solve the problem, they just make things worse and should be avoided. It's important to find some stress management strategies that work for you. So emotional expression is really important, especially with your loved ones and things that really matter to you. Having real connections with others, not only on social media, but also sharing things with people in the real world. Having passions like dance or music or art, drawing, or anything that you feel passionate about will also help for liver constraints. Regular physical exercise is again extremely important here to have a good flow of qi in the body, and also mindfulness exercises such as yoga, qigong, and tai chi. Exposure to nature is also a very important aspect to let our body relax, soothe our emotions, and having a better flow of qi. The last constitution we're going to see is the blood stasis constitution. So it's generally connected to other things such as T deficiency, T stagnation, or coldness constricting vessels. The result is that the blood is not moving properly in the vessels. People who have a blood stasis constitution may have a dark skin, having also hematoma easily, and this hematoma may not cure very easily. Chloasma, which are dark spots on the face. They may have a purplish tongue, lips and nails as well, purplish. They may have congested veins on the limbs and also under the tongue. People who have blood stasis will be vulnerable to gynecological conditions, but they're also vulnerable to cardiac and vascular disease such as stroke. They tend to also have bodily pain very easily. So the management of blood stasis is depending on the core reason. It will be avoiding exhaustion, stress, and exposure to cold weather. And some things that can help with blood stasis includes safflower flower infusion, rose flower infusion, and also some moderate quantities of red wine can help to move a little bit the blood, but they can't, especially for red wine, you can't have too much of that either. In summary, there are 7 types of main constitutions, including Yang Deficiency with coldness, Yin Deficiency with heat, Spleen Deficiency with dampness, Damp heat, Blood Deficiency with liver constraints, and blood stasis. Of course, there are many other ways of categorizing the constitution, so this is just one of them. And there is a high level of interplay between the different types of constitution as well. By adjusting your lifestyle according to your constitution, you can get a better health, which is a better sleep, eating better, having more energy in general, and also more importantly, prevent some medical conditions to happen. I am Yoann Birling, a clinician, lecturer, and researcher in Chinese medicine. Please feel free to like this video if you did, and subscribe to our channel for more videos on health, psychology, and Chinese medicine.